Hi, everybody. Marye Dean Esquire here at thewallstreetlawyer.com, coming to you live. And get in here because we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Wendy Williams. So let me know you're here. Drop a B1 in the chat. Let me make sure we're going live here. Here we are. Good morning. Good morning. Let me switch back here. And got my meditation music going. I'm sorry. I'm slacking this morning. We're going to listen to this tune. So come on in here. Drop a B1 in the chat. Let me know you're here. We're going live this morning at blackwallstreet.com because Black wealth is critical to Black power. We are also at Fly Nubian Queen, where Black women have a voice, and I am one of those proud Black women today. Also going live on my Instagram at The Wall Street Lawyer. So if you're not already following me, please make sure that you do. We're going to get in here and talk about our dear sister, Wendy Williams. Hashtag free Wendy. Hashtag free Wendy. Keep in mind, let me make sure this is not too loud. I've noticed on some of my lives, I'm yelling over my meditation music, which defeats the purpose of the meditation music. Stressing me out. So let's see who's in here with me. Drop your B1. We're gonna get in here today and talk about our dear sister Wendy Williams. Hashtag free Wendy Williams. How many of you have watched the documentary? Let me know if you watched the documentary. Let me know what your thoughts are. We're going to talk about it in a second. We're going to talk about it in a second. So how many of y'all actually watched the documentary? Drop a WW in the chat if you've seen the documentary, because we're going to talk about it today. All right. It was really hard to watch for those of you who did not see it. It was really hard to watch. And if I would not want to be seen in that light. I did not think that the documentary showed her in the best light. It was quite embarrassing. And so I can't see the benefit, other than the fact that I think it strengthens the argument that whoever is her guardian is not doing a good job of that. But outside of that, I don't really see the benefit of that documentary. It really made her look bad. I think it made those who were on her team around her look bad. You have to ask yourself, who she's definitely lonely. She's definitely sad. She's definitely depressed. She was definitely in a much better position when she was in a much better position when she was in the care of her son and with his family. And so we're going to get in here and we're going to talk about it. Let's first start with the timeline of events that occurred. Starting from, let me see if I can share my screen here. A timeline of events that occurred thanks to this law firm. I think they're based out in California. Someone say this definitely was a bad look for everyone involved with Wendy Williams. It was. I mean, everybody. I mean, I understand. Even when I look at her son, I think that her son may have been the better guardian. Yes, the better guardian. Yes. But I argue that I think it was his spending that actually flagged the bank. I don't think that the bank would have been flagged if it wasn't for the money that he spent. I think he spent like $120,000 on his birthday party, maybe another $80,000 on Uber Eats. And so because the money was, which was so different from her normal spending habits, right? Because I do believe that she took care of her son and gave him, whatever he wanted, like he said, but I don't think that she was paying for, six-figure birthday parties every year. I don't know, but that did look suspicious to the bank, which was why the transactions were flagged to begin with. So I don't, I don't know if this conservatorship was in her, or this guardianship was in her best interest or not. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it. So let's look at this timeline. Come on in here, drop a B1. Let me know you're in the house. Let's check out this timeline from Wendy Williams. Let's see here. I'm going to pull it up over here for myself. Okay. July 2021. Let me see. July 2021, Williams make her final appearance on her talk show, The Wendy Williams Show, though she did not know it would be her last show at the time, as she expected to return in fall of that year. September 21, reports surfaced that Williams had been transported to a New York hospital following a call to 911 for an individual in need of psychiatric services. That was September of 21. November of 21, further reports surfaced that Williams is suffering from early onset dementia. Her brother Tommy publicly denies these claims, stating that she is not suffering from any such ailment. I don't know. Is he saving face? Is he just, or he's trying to protect her public image and trying to make sure, it's hard to tell. But again, I am of the belief that her family should have been the primary people appointed to care for her. I think that anybody outside of her family should have been a last resort. If she had no people in her orbit that could care for her. She obviously had parents that loved her. She had a son that loved her. She had close friends that loved her. Yet she was lonely and depressed. And under their care, she's drinking and smoking her blue vape pen. So I don't know if this guardian is really looking out for her, which is why that's the only good thing about this documentary, is that it shed that kind of light on the situation. So January of 22, Williams' attorney LaShawn Thomas says that Williams made a request to Wells Fargo for her bank account statements because she suspects fiduciary misconduct by her financial advisor and needs her most recent bank statements to switch to another financial institution. So that's January of 2022. Again, Williams' attorney. So this is Wendy Williams' own attorney, LaShawn Thomas, says that Williams made a request. She makes this request to Wells Fargo for her bank account statements because Wendy Williams suspected fiduciary misconduct by her financial advisor and needed her most recent bank statements because she was going to switch to another financial institution. So that is, to me, that's a that's a huge red flag, if you will. The fact that she alerted Wells Fargo that she believes she was being taken advantage of by her financial advisor and needed her most recent bank statements to switch to another bank. And then, after receiving notice, this is January of 22 now. After receiving notice from Williams' financial advisor, Lori Schiller, that the TV host is of unsound mind. Now they're getting this, she's telling them that she's of unsound mind. Wells Fargo freezes Williams' bank accounts and petitions the court to have her placed under a temporary financial guardianship, citing risk of financial exploitation, dementia, or undue influence in the court filing. As a result of Wells Fargo's claims that Williams is a possible victim of financial abuse, the TV personality fires her entire management team, including Schiller and Bernie Young, her financial advisors. This is sad, y'all. Then Williams' legal team files an emergency order with the New York Supreme Court for her Wells Fargo bank accounts to be frozen. In the petition, Williams claims the bank is in possession of several $1,000,000 worth of funds and that she has been denied access to those funds for upward of 2 weeks, which has led her to default or risk defaulting on her bills. The petition further claimed that Wells Fargo is breaching its fiduciary duty to Williams, causing her to suffer imminent and irreparable financial damage. Williams argues that the claims surrounding her alleged incapacity were falsified and that despite terminating her problematic advisors, Wells Fargo continues to deny her access to her accounts. Williams demands that she and her team be granted access to her Wells Fargo account within 48 hours. That was February of 2022. February of 2022, also, her Wendy Williams show was permanently canceled. Who's in here with me? Okay. Let me know what y'all think. Let me see here. Where are we? February of 2022. I'm reading over here. As a result of Wells Fargo's claims, okay, no, we already got to that. Wendy Williams show was canceled. This is also the same month that the emergency order of protection was filed by Williams' legal team to try to get her back into her bank account. So they're taking her money. Her show gets permanently canceled. All of this is happening at the same time. So I just can only imagine the mental state that she's going through. It's not just maybe the alcohol addiction. It could be what's literally happening in this beautiful Black queen's life. We got somebody dropping the B1. You know, we're already skeptical about Wells Fargo. We already know how they treat our community, how they mistreat the little guy. We already do not trust Wells Fargo. So, I mean, someone asked why permanently cancel the show, keep the legacy going? Y'all, you can't have a Wendy Williams show without Wendy Williams. I'm sorry. They tried to have guest hosts. And then I guess they got a longer guest host, which is how Sherry Shepherd ended up taking on the show. But once you put another host in that spot, I think the host, it's no longer the Wendy Williams show, because the Wendy Williams show is Wendy Williams. So I don't know how we can keep that legacy going. But, let's get back to this timeline here. So the February 22, the Wendy Williams show was also permanently canceled. She's also locked out of her bank accounts. March of 2022, that next month, Young, the financial advisor who Williams previously terminated, files a petition to be appointed as her financial guardian, even though Williams claims that she wants nothing to do with him. Why does he file this petition? He's been fired by Wendy Williams. I don't know. In March of 22, the court appoints an unnamed temporary financial guardian for Williams, agreeing with Wells Fargo that a temporary guardian is necessary while the Wendy Williams and Wells Fargo bank case is pending. So they appoint a temporary guardian. We know that these court records are sealed, so we can't really get our hands on the actual petition itself and what's going on. But usually they appoint a temporary financial advisor who has the ability to pay her bills and keep her bills current. So we do see her selling her clothes in the documentary. And we wonder, I guess only one can assume that maybe she is selling these clothes to get money for liquor or whatever it is else that she wants, that the financial guardian or the financial advisor is not going to pay. So let me know you're in here. Drop the B1, hit the share and subscribe button. We're getting into this right now. We're going through the timeline, the Wendy Williams timeline of events that occurred that led up to what we saw in the documentary over the weekend on Lifetime. It's been trending everywhere. Free Wendy Williams is the talk of the town. And I think it's putting legitimate fear in everyone's mind. Can a bank just do this to me? Can a bank just come in and take over my bank accounts and not give my family access if the bank determines that I'm not well? And the truth is, the bank contractually, we're going to get into that a little bit later, but the bank, you talk about, there's one thing of what's going on in the law when you don't have a contract, but for most of you, when you join a bank and you open up that bank account, you are signing away all of these things. It's something that you have to be mindful of, and we just sign them, right? And you get this boilerplate agreement, and you just sign on a dotted line so that you can say, yes, give me my account, give me my stuff, take my money. But do you really understand what you're signing and agreeing to? So back to this timeline. The court appoints the temporary guardian March 22. In March of 22, in response to Williams' claim that she risked defaulting on bills due to Wells Fargo freezing her assets, the bank giant releases a statement that in part reads, Wells Fargo priority is the financial well-being of Miss Williams and the preservation of her privacy. As we have expressed to the court, they want to keep this private. I wonder why. As we have expressed to the court, Wells Fargo is open to working with Ms. Williams' counsel to release funds directly to her creditors for bills historically and regularly paid from her accounts. So they are agreeing to, pay her ongoing living expenses for bills that she's normally pays, that she has a history of paying. They are concerned about all of these new transactions. And I'm telling you, what probably flagged them was the $120,000 birthday party that her son paid for himself, and the $80,000 Uber Eats bills. And this is their excuse. This is what Wells Fargo feels justified in asking the court to appoint a guardian before they continue to relinquish funds, because they feel like they're the person who is not either caring for her appropriately, or that she didn't make these transactions herself. And so in March of 22, in that same month, Wendy Williams posted a video to Instagram in which she claims, among other things, that Young used approximately, now this is her financial advisor, the guy who came back and tried to be appointed as her temporary financial advisor, temporary financial guardian. This is the financial advisor that Wendy Williams previously fired. So Wendy Williams posted a video to Instagram in which she claims, among other things, that Young used approximately of $100,000 of her money to hire a law firm to pursue a guardianship over her. So I guess he, as her financial advisor, used her money to hire an attorney to appoint himself as the financial guardian. She also alleges that a former doctor whom she fired had sent her medical information to Schiller, her former financial advisor, who then shared it with Wells Fargo without her consent. So she's saying that she's not agreeing to what her financial advisor and her financial guardian was doing behind her back. So this is the financial guardian who she fired. Young was her financial advisor who she hired, and it looks like fired, and is now claiming in her petition that he took her money to go hire an attorney to have himself appointed as her financial guardian, which you would do to say that a person lacks the financial capacity to care for their financial affairs. So it sounds like that her financial advisor was doing the right thing. There obviously needed to be a financial guardian appointed, which is why the court stepped in and now appointed a financial advisor outside of her orbit. Okay, so because it looks like the one that was in her orbit, she terminated. But the accusation, Williams posted a video on Instagram in which she claims, among other things, that he used $100,000 of her money to hire a law firm to pursue guardianship over her. And she also alleges that a former doctor whom she fired has sent her medical information to Schiller, her former financial advisor, who then shared it with Wells Fargo without her consent. Okay. A New York judge in May of 2022 A New York judge appointed an unnamed guardian to control Williams' finances until at least July. This new guardianship removed Wells Fargo from having any operational role in Wendy Williams' financial guardianship dispute. Okay, in May of 22, Williams is interviewed by rapper Fat Joe and revealed to him that she has only $2 to her name. News outlets described her as rambling during the interview, leading many to question whether she is indeed suffering from neurological and or mental health issues. It's not looking good for our dear sister Wendy. August of 2022, Williams' former lawyer speaks out about the Wendy Williams versus Wells Fargo dispute, issuing this statement to Page 6. The real issue is that Wells Fargo, through their advisor, refused to grant Wendy access to her own accounts. This included the right to check her balance. No bank should have the authority to do that. No one attempted to gain access to any of Wendy's accounts. The Wells Fargo advisor and former manager, Bernie Young, were the only people with access, and they left Wendy to die. The question on many people's mind is, did Wendy Williams get her money from Wells Fargo yet? As of September, the answer to that question remains no. And as we've seen in the documentary, we can still confirm that that answer is no. While Wells Fargo no longer directly controls Williams' finances, she is still under a financial guardianship, which means that her finances are controlled by her financial guardian. So that's, ouch, that's getting into that. I kind of agree with Get the Jiggy With It, who says the banks want her money. I am convinced that the banks do want her money. Something fishy is going on. I do think the banks, they do have an obligation to preserve your assets. And we have to ask ourselves, if they did not step in to preserve her assets, would her assets get depleted by her son, whom she very much loved? But he was spending recklessly. And so this is why we have to have financial planning in place. She needed something more than just the power of attorney. The bank and the court felt like the power of attorney was not enough. It was not enough to protect her from any type of financial abuse. Now, so, let's get into this. Why did Wells Fargo freeze Wendy Williams' account? Upon learning that Wendy Williams' account is frozen, it's a natural question to ask yourself. Does a bank have a right to do that? I mean, after all, we place our trust in banks to securely hold our funds and release them to us as we request. That's how this thing goes. You hold my money, you charge me a little bit to hold my money, and when I want my money back, you're supposed to give me my money back. In its petition, Wells Fargo justified its decision to freeze the TV mogul's accounts by citing its authority under various client contracts. Back to that client contract that you signed. And the contract that they cited, the part that they referred, says that they have a right to pause or reject. They have pause or reject instructions for a proposed transaction pending judicial or administrative remedies in the event exploitation, dementia, or undue influence is suspected. But because New York has sealed the Wendy Williams financial guardianship case, it's impossible to know exactly what factors led Wells Fargo to freezing Williams' assets and petitioning for her to be placed under a financial guardianship. A lot of people believe, we have our dear sister, or Get Jiggy With It, Get the Jiggy With It. Get the Jiggy With It, who says they want to take her money. A lot of Wendy Williams fans out there believe that the bank has some ulterior motives. And it's hard to know with those records being sealed. I think the first thing is to say unseal those records so that we can actually see what the judge is basing these decisions upon. Okay. Make sure you hit the share and subscribe button. We are getting into this. um, is we're getting into this, and we're getting into some discussions that we need to have in our community. I know that you don't like to talk about death. You do not like to talk about one day becoming injured or becoming incapacitated. I mean, you could get there from an injury. You could get there from a car accident. You could get there from, like Christopher Reeves, who fell off of a horse. You could get there from anything, and so as we, every day I live in a healthy body. Every day I'm able to wake up, I am grateful for my health and my strength. I am grateful that my body is able to move through the world vibrant, and to be able to walk, and oh my gosh, when I think about the image of our dear sister Wendy Williams' feet, her feet, baby, the lymphedema has really gotten to her. And so you have to take care of your body, guys. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your health. And one of the ways that a lot of people greatly diminish their health is through addiction. It takes years off of your life. So is the Wendy Williams financial guardianship genuinely needed? Did the bank overstep? As far as whether Wells Fargo's actions toward Wendy Williams were warranted, it's hard to say without looking at the actual court documents, which have been sealed. But what can be said is that courts do typically do their due diligence in deciding whether or not a guardianship is needed, since the effect of such an arrangement is an adult being stripped of some of their most basic rights. But, do we know if the judge acted in good faith or not? Do we know? We don't know, because those documents are sealed. I want to take this opportunity to drop my best friend who's running for judge in probate court, Siobhan Carr, probate court in Houston, Harris County. Vote Siobhan Carr. She is definitely the best by far. We have been friends for 17 years. We've been attorneys for 17 years. We actually met studying for the Texas bar exam. And, the judge who you appoint matters. Having diversity on the bench matters. Having people that look like us, that actually care about us, that will fight for us in position of power matter. And so if you are in Houston, Harris County, please make sure you get out there and vote for my friend Siobhan Carr. And if you're in any place, get out there and vote, not just Houston, Harris County. Vote everywhere. Exercise your power, exercise your voice. Let's get into this. Make sure you hit the share and subscribe button, because we're having those difficult conversations. Thank you to what our beautiful sister Wendy Williams is actually going through in real life, in real time. And so it is shedding a light. It is finally shedding a light on estate planning and probate and being incapacitated, and what happens to you should you end up in a situation like that. Can a bank freeze your assets? Can a bank deny your children access to your money? Can a bank just deny you access to your money? And so before approving or denying a guardianship, courts generally hold a hearing in which both sides have an opportunity to present evidence and testimony. And in Wendy Williams' court, the court decided to place her under a temporary financial guardianship first, and later officially appointed an anonymous financial guardian who may or may not be the same temporary guardian that was appointed in March to remain in the role until at least July. However, as of September, the guardian is still in place, and no reason has been provided as to why. Was there no evidence or other ways for Wells Fargo to protect Wendy Williams' finances? Could Wendy Williams have taken precautions to avoid being placed under guardianship? This might be one of the most important questions that you should ask, that we should all ask. And technically, Wendy Williams was taking precautions when she granted her son power of attorney, as previously mentioned. However, there are additional safeguards that can be put in place to potentially avoid the need for a guardianship. For example, if the alleged incompetent person had placed their assets in a trust. How many of you out there have heard of the word trust? How many of you out there actually have a trust? How many of you, because having a trust is one level, But as in some of my clients who don't do the second part, not following up with them, we got to finish the second part. Did you actually transfer your assets into the trust? Okay. Drop a trust in the chat if you have a trust. Drop a trust in the chat if you don't have a trust. But hey, you know that you need a trust. Drop the word trust, because we're going to talk about, could Wendy Williams have taken precautions to avoid being placed under guardianship? And she did. She had her son as a power of attorney, but there were some other safeguards that she could have put in place, and one of them is putting her assets in a trust and designated a successor trustee to manage the trust assets in the event of her incapacity. A guardianship could have potentially been avoided. Something else Williams could have done was to designate someone via her estate planning documents to act as her guardian in the event of her incapacity. Okay, you can name your guardian before a court has to come in and name one for you. You can name guardians for your minor children. You can name temporary, we say you should name temporary guardians as well as permanent guardians for your children. If something happens to you, drop the word guardian in the chat. If you have guardianship, if you have a guardianship, if you are a parent and you have children, do you have named guardians for those children? And if you don't, then oh, excuse me, my eye is itching. Then schedule a consultation with me, and we will talk about your estate planning documents, and we will talk about naming guardianship for yourself and naming guardians for your children. Okay. We will talk about putting a will in place, to put a trust in place, to make sure that you don't end up in this situation. Because I can tell you what, the court will always defer to your documents. So I'd like to even see what the power of attorney language was in the power of attorney that she had for young Kevin. Okay. Williams could have done what Williams could have done was to designate someone via her estate planning documents to act as her guardian in the event of her incapacity. This way, even if she did have to cede control of her finances to a guardian, it would be to a guardian of her own choosing. She's in no position to be choosing a guardian at this point. A court has to step in and make those decisions for her, because she did not make those decisions for herself when she had the lucidity to do so. The reality is that even if appropriate safeguards are put in place, they will not guarantee that a guardianship will not be required down the road. For example, the person designated as attorney in fact or successor trustee could be unfit to serve, which the court decided that young Kevin, who was placed as her power of attorney, was unfit to serve in that capacity. So the court could determine that the person you point is unfit to fulfill those obligations, or that person could decide that they don't want to fulfill those obligations, which at that point a court will have to come in and step in and name a guardian for you. As such, under certain circumstances, guardianship may be the only viable means of protecting an allegedly incompetent person. So that's it in a nutshell. Can the bank freeze my accounts? Look, the Wendy Williams guardianship can make anyone fearful about the safety of their own bank account. In Williams' case, Wells Fargo's had a clause within the agreements that she signed. Back to that contract between you and the bank that we don't think about when you're opening up that bank account, opening up all of those bank accounts, business bank accounts, or what have you. What are the terms that you are agreeing to? And so these are the questions you need to ask when you're at the bank opening up these accounts, especially if you're opening up an account with the bank like Wells Fargo. Because banks are entitled to freeze your assets for a variety of reasons, right? And in this case, Wells Fargo had a clause within the agreement she signed that enabled them to pause or reject instructions for a proposed transaction if exploitation, dementia, or undue influence was suspected. And again, a family member can suscept you to undue influence. And if that family member is spending, $100 grand on a birthday party, $100 grand on Uber Eats, $100 grand here and $100 grand there, that does trigger that and you trigger the bank and raises a red flag in the bank's eyes, which is what happened here. Okay. So another way that we can look at that is the bank actually trying to protect our assets. My problem with trusting the bank is the fact that we don't trust Wells Fargo to begin with. So just the fact that it's Wells Fargo, that just raises all kind of red flag. Where Wells Fargo is the red flag. And the fact that the court records are sealed, in my opinion, is another red flag. This deserves to be public, because at least if it's public, it has the checks and balances of Instagram, the law firm of Instagram and Instagram University and the internet coming to her savior. It's the publicity of it all. So, okay. If you want to book a consultation, I see somebody in here is asking for my email. Can I get jiggy with it? Want my email address? I dropped the link in my description. You can schedule a consultation with me there. If you follow that link, it'll take you straight over to my calendar and book with me straight from there. You can also find me on all social media at The Wall Street Lawyer. I'm also at blackwallstreet.com. That is my mission. That is my heart song, because Black wealth is critical to Black power. I specialize in helping Black women, Black entrepreneurs, and period, take their passion, take their business to the next level. And once you take it to the next level, how do you preserve that for the next generation? You do that through making sure your estate planning and your house is in order. You need to make sure that you have a trust, that you have a will, that you have named power of attorneys, that you have named guardianships in place for you and your children should you become incapacitated. I know many of you out there are getting life insurance. You understand that you should be getting life insurance. You are getting life insurance. But if you have life insurance and you don't have a named beneficiary as a trust, and you have a children named as a named beneficiary, that money will get tied up in probate court. It will get tied up because it'll get tied up in probate court, because the child is a minor. And so the court is going to appoint a guardian to oversee that child, to make sure that the child's interests are being handled, period, because that child is of age and cannot handle their own self. So we have some questions here. Someone says, is a trust needed if you don't have children, but you do have assets? Let me tell you what the purpose of a trust is. The purpose of a trust is to keep those assets out of probate court. So if you have a business, right, and you may have a business partner, if you have a business, if you have a house, if you have a car, if you have bank accounts, you put all of those assets will be transferred into a living trust. And then once upon your death, those assets are outside of the probate estate. And so they pass to you automatically. That's why if you have your trust named as the beneficiary of your trust, the life insurance proceeds will be funded into that trust automatically and distributed according to the terms of your trust automatically. If the trustee is no longer able to serve, and a successor trustee will be appointed in accordance with the trust. And so you want to make sure that you put all of these benefits in place to benefit the people that you're going to leave behind. It may not be children. It may be your spouse. It may be your best friend. It may be it may be your parents, for that matter. It may be your siblings. It's whoever who would inherit from you, because if you die without a will, most states have intestate laws in place that will kick in and determine how your assets will be distributed. But the issue is, again, that all of those assets will pass through probate. Now, many states also have small estate administration. So if the estates are not that valuable, there are other alternatives that people can do to go through I won't say avoid probate, avoid with the probate proceeding, but a very simplified. It still has to be filed with the probate court. In Texas, we have what they call a small estate affidavit that has to be filed. Many banks will, but again, we follow what the bank because you have a contract with the bank. And so it's what will the bank what will the bank do? I'm sorry, I'm responding to these questions. My eyes jumping. I'm talking a million miles an hour. But what is, someone asked, what is probate? I'm going to try to give you, let me see, what is probate? Google and give you an answer. But the answer off the top of my head, probate is the legal process of transferring your assets from one generation to the next. And you do that through a probate proceeding, a legal proceeding calling probate. We probate those assets, and we can do it whether there's a will or not. If it's a will, you probate a will. If it's not a will, then it's called really an estate administration, and so if you have a will, that will is still nothing. The will, when you sign a will is just a legal document. It's a legal contract. It's a great one. You put your wishes down on paper, but that piece of paper will not mean anything until it goes into a court and goes through the legal process called probate. And so that is what probate is. Just like a legal process to quit your spouse and separate from your spouse is called a divorce. The legal process to take that will and have the assets pass from one generation to the next by the terms of that will, to make that will valid, to enforce that will, to make the contents in that will in order, it has to go through what we call a probate proceeding. Make sure you hit the share and subscribe button. Okay, when I Google what is the dictionary definition of probate, yes, the official proving of a will. So that would be the probate. And if it's not probate, in the same court, if you don't have a will and it has to go, the property, because your property will have to pass from one generation to the other, no matter what. Whether you die with the will, you die without a will, you leave behind a house. How does that house get into how is that house transferred into the name of the children? If you what is the proceeding? If you have a car and how does the title from that vehicle go from one person to the next, with the other person being a deceased person? That process is going to happen through an estate administration if you don't have a will, or a probate proceeding if there is a will. That's what that is. And so it's my time. I'm almost an hour. I'm past time because I started a little late. I'm going to start getting here on time. The problem is I'd be thinking about it, and when I start getting ready and then I start doing research, and then the research sends me down a rabbit hole, and I'm the lawyer, I always go down that research rabbit hole and come in here. But we're getting better, because the thing about it, guys, the more you show up, the better you will show up. And so the first order of business is just to show up. That is my order of business. I'm just glad I'm showing back up again with y'all, especially during our good old Black History Month. I'm going to talk about this again. We're going to talk about this some more, because this case is so exciting to me. It's because it's bringing this topic. You know, I love probate. I love estate planning. I love making sure that we have assets that pass to the next generation, because I'm concerned about generational wealth, because Black wealth is critical to Black power. Again, my best friend is running for probate judge in Houston, Harris County, Texas. Make sure you get out there and vote for Siobhan Carr. She is the best by far. And if you're looking to schedule a consultation and you want to get your own house in order, you're concerned about your own assets, making sure they pass from one generation to the next. Maybe you don't have a will, maybe you don't have a trust, maybe you don't have named guardians that are in place should you become incapacitated, or you don't have your named guardians for your children. If you want to book that consultation, I dropped it in the chat. You can find me online at thewallstreetlawyer.com. And my mission, power to the people, is blackwallstreet.com, because Black wealth is critical to Black power. I'm out.